So you want to build a truly dominant AI product for a specific industry, what we call a vertical market. Well, it's not about having one single killer feature. It's about absolutely mastering three very specific, powerful capabilities that have to work in perfect sync.
And look, this isn't just some helpful framework, it's an all-or-nothing game. As we're about to see, if you miss even one of these core requirements, that's the difference between a forgotten feature and a product that defines an entire market.
All right, so here's the magic formula. You can picture it as three circles overlapping: deep domain expertise, seamless integrations, and a complete solution. Now, success isn't in any one of those circles. No way. It's only in that tiny little sliver right in the middle where all three meet. That's the success zone. And that's exactly where we're aiming.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down today. We'll kick things off with that all-or-nothing rule. Then, we'll dive deep into each of the three requirements, one by one. After that, we're going to look at a really good real-world cautionary tale, and then wrap up by laying out a clear path for you to build your own dominant product.
Okay, first up, domain expertise. You can think of this as the brains of your product, the intelligence layer. It's all about being way smarter than a general-purpose AI when it comes to your specific field. Think about the general AI chatbots we all use. They're pretty good, right? We could say they operate at about 70% quality. And that's honestly impressive. But in specialized industries, pretty good is a recipe for disaster. That's because when you're dealing with things like finance or healthcare, when money or even lives are on the line, you can't be wrong 30% of the time. You need 99% accuracy. There's just no room for error. So the big question is, how do you bridge that massive 29% gap? Well, there are two main ways to get there. Path number one is fine-tuning. This is where you take a big base model like GPT-4 and you train it on enormous industry-specific datasets. It's like sending your AI to med school. It gets incredibly smart for sure, but it's also really expensive and takes forever to update. The second path is building what we call vertical intelligence. Here, instead of retraining the whole model, you build a library of specialized tools and skills that essentially teach the general AI to act like an expert. This approach is way faster and a whole lot more flexible. Okay, so once you've got the brains, you need the nervous system. And that brings us to requirement number 2, deep integrations. This is what connects your super smart AI to the real world. This quote just nails it. I mean, if your incredible AI can't actually connect with the tools your customers are already using every single day, then it's just a cool demo. It's a product that's stuck in a sandbox, totally cut off from any real-world workflow. And this is what deep integration really means. We're not just talking about reading data, we're talking about writing it back correctly. For an AI in healthcare, it means writing clinical notes into a system like Epic in the exact format required. For finance, it's not just reading stock prices, it's executing a trade through the proper regulated channels. It has to be a fluent, two-way conversation. And here's the beautiful part. Building these deep integrations is incredibly difficult. It takes months, sometimes years, of wading through API documentation, passing brutal compliance checks, and clearing security audits. But all that difficulty, that's your competitive advantage. That's your defensible moat. A competitor can't just come along and copy it over a weekend. This brings us to our third and final requirement, creating complete agentic solutions. You can think of this as the workflow layer. This is all about building an AI that can solve an entire problem for a user, from start to finish, not just one tiny piece of it.
So, what do we mean by a complete solution? It's a system that manages a whole process. For instance, an AI that just reads a bunch of clinical studies? That's a feature. But an AI that reads the patient's electronic health record, the latest studies, the insurance rules, and the FDA regulations to then recommend a truly actionable treatment plan, that is a complete solution.
And honestly, that right there is the critical difference. If you only solve a slice of the problem, your product is a nice to have. It's a toy. But if you solve the entire workflow, your product becomes absolutely indispensable. Now let's look at what happens when you miss the mark on this stuff. We're going to dive into a perfect cautionary tale from OpenAI and its study mode feature. Let's give study mode a report card against our 3 requirements. Domain expertise? Partial. It was just a general AI, not one specifically trained on educational curricula or pedagogy. Deep integrations? Partial. Again, sure, it connected to a couple of learning management systems, but not the whole ecosystem. And a complete solution? You guessed it? Partial. It could answer a student's question, but it couldn't actually manage their learning path or help a teacher with grading.
So what was the end result of getting partial credit on everything?
It was just a feature, something teachers might use once in a while. It wasn't a real product that could generate over $10 million in revenue, because it never became indispensable. It never solved the whole problem.
That case study just shows you so clearly what goes wrong. So let's really hammer this point home and break down the failure formulas to see exactly why having just 2 out of 3 never, ever works.
First up, let's say you have the expertise and the integrations, but you don't have a complete solution. What you've really built is just a very smart data pipeline. It's useful, yeah, but it's not actually transforming anyone's job.
Okay, how about this one? You've got the expertise and a complete solution, but you're missing those critical integrations. Well, now you've built a sandbox toy. It might be brilliant on its own, but since it can't connect to any real customer workflows, it just stays a novelty.
And finally, what if you have the integrations and the solution but no real domain expertise? Well, you've just created a weak wrapper around a general AI. And the huge problem with that is that your competitors can copy it in a matter of weeks.
So it feels like a minefield, right? If missing any single piece leads to failure, how in the world do you make sure you build all 3? The key is to be systematic about it.
Here's the playbook that works. You build this thing in phases, and kind of counterintuitively, you start with the hardest part, the infrastructure for deep integrations. As you're building that connection, you'll be able to collect the unique data you need to build up your domain expertise. And only then, once you have those 2 pillars firmly in place, can you layer that complete end-to-end solution right on top.
So there you have it, 3 non-negotiable requirements. No shortcuts. Now it's your turn to put this framework to work. Pick an industry you know inside and out. What would real, deep domain expertise actually look like? What are the absolute must-have integrations? And what is the complete end-to-end problem that a truly dominant product in that space would finally solve?